guys, we have some special guests at the Tavern today. Today we have Terrence and Terrell Hughes, the Hughes brothers. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey man, good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for doing this. Like we talked earlier, I know we played tag back and forth a little bit, but it's good to finally all be in the same room together.
Yeah, man.
Zoom room.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys, I'm very fascinated to talk to you guys because, you know, we've talked to a lot of pro wrestlers, you know, legends to up and comers, but we've never really had a chance to sit down with second generation guys. And, you know, one thing we always ask is, you know, were you a pro wrestling fan growing up to some people? And with you guys, I'm kind of fascinated because you grew up with a father during the height of the hottest time in pro wrestling. Did that, you know, you hear some people say when their father is involved in pro wrestling, that wrestling is just kind of, you're used to it. You don't realize it's as big as it is. And you may not be as big a fan, but for you guys growing up, like, were you fans of pro wrestling? How did that fandom come about? And what was it like growing up with, you know, Devon as your dad, Devon Dudley, the Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have like a special moment, and I don't really know if I have like a specific moment that caught me as a fan. My earliest memories just in general was just being in the locker rooms and watching it. So I knew that I was a fan, starting from ECW. And then I remember as a kid, we would all watch WWF at the time. And so we just like grew up in the living room watching it and going into the shows for ECW. And then from then on to WWE, just watching it. So we were both fans our whole life, as early as we can remember.
You got bit by the bug. And me and my brother were always athletic. So just a very physical contact sport was something that we always wanted to do. So football, stuff like that, that's what we always loved doing. So wrestling just fell into that category.
I mean, what's it like being in the locker rooms of like ECW? I mean, the lore of that company, and your dad being, you know, you guys were, I'm guessing, around Bubba, Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him today. But being around those type of guys, does it influence you today? I imagine it does. Just you guys getting into the business and showing up on AEW. Do you pull from those experiences when you were young?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was kind of intimidating growing up in the locker room because when you're like 5 years old, 6 years old, they're like these huge, larger than life characters, but they were all so cool with us and they kind of treated us as if we were one big family. So I think that's kind of what made us want to come back to watch, because they were usually pretty inviting in the locker rooms and things like that, and would ask about us or tell our dad that, you know, they said hi and they can't wait to see us. And so like little stuff like that was really inviting for us. And so it kind of felt like it was a family.
Awesome.
So, you know, growing up in the locker rooms like that, I know we asked people, you know, who were their favorites growing up. And I'm sure for you guys, that's probably a different answer. So who was your favorites growing up?
I had a lot of favorites. And one thing, like I liked everybody in certain categories. Like my all-time favorite, I love like Randy Orton and Stone Cold. I love like the intensity of Stone Cold. I loved how smooth Randy Orton was. And then I had a lot in common with Randy. I remember he came out with a documentary a while ago, and I just felt like I felt like kind of a connection with him. He's third generation, we're second generation, but
right.
His upbringing and like the experiences that he had and how he turned it into what it is now was kind of like an inspiration for me. What I would have loved to have done, like take what he knew and what he grew up with and turn it into something like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, for me, growing up in the Attitude Era, Stone Cold was a big one for me. I love Stone Cold. And then like it kind of changed. Like as I got older, I got into amateur wrestling. So I went to states. I was a state qualifier. So then I kind of started to get into like Kurt Angle. And I started respecting his style and legitimacy that he brought to the sport. So I was kind of different phases, but I think like I had a big admiration for guys like Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, and then like the Road Warriors were a big one for me too.
Oh, that's great, man. Like now you talked about being into amateur wrestling. When do you get the bug to actually train for pro wrestling? When did you guys decide? Because I know when you were younger, you guys were involved in the angle when Devon and Bully Ray in TNA had their feud, and Bully Ray's talking trash to you guys in the stands. So it's like, when did you get the bug and you're like, you know what? It's in our blood. We might as well go start training to do this.
We got the bug, I think, before that. Like, that was kind of a trial for us. So we always knew we wanted to. And our dad would always say things like, you know, write up a script one day and give it to like Jeff Jarrett when he was in TNA, and maybe he'll put you on a storyline one of these days. So he would always tease it. And then Vince Russo was in the back one day, and then we weren't at the taping, but he said, I always hear you guys talk about it. Why don't we like do it? And then our dad was like, this will be like a test for my boys. And maybe if they actually get on camera, they could either fail or they could like it or not like it, but at least we'll know if they get a piece of it and see if they like it. So that was kind of like our trial. And then we did it, and we were only supposed to do 2 shows. After the 2 shows, the crowd in the Impact Zone at the time really enjoyed it. Like, they were reacting to it. And so Vince Russo and the guys in the back liked it. So they brought us back for more. And I think we ended up sticking around for almost a year to get involved. So it kind of gave us the bug even more than what we had.
Yeah, because you guys shot the angle with D'Angelo De Niro too, right? After the Bully Ray feud.
Yeah, we were. I think we were pretty consistent for like a year of doing an angle, because we started off the angle with Bubba, and then we did the angle with D'Angelo. But there were times where like we would show up, and they wouldn't really have us do anything in the show, but they would have us do like a backstage segment or sit in the crowd or do something where we were still involved. And even if it didn't air, we still got paid, or we were still there, or we were still doing something. But it was pretty consistent for like a year, I think.
Yeah. So what was it like? You guys trained at Team 3D, right? Team 3D Academy?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, are you training directly under your dad, or, you know, is Bully Ray in there with you guys? Like, who were your trainers that really showed you the ropes, maybe outside of your dad?
Bubba was there too. He wasn't there as much. For a while, Devon was primarily the trainer. And then Bubba moved to Connecticut and opened up his own location. So it was primarily Devon, and then he had other guest people come in, like Tommy Dreamer, Samoa Joe. So there's a lot of people that would come into the school that would help train. But as far as like a consistent basis, it was mostly our dad.
Now, what was that training like?
It was pretty tough. Yeah. I feel like we had it pretty tough compared to everybody else, just because it's like when you grow up and you're in athletics, like you're the coach's son. So there's going to be more expected, and usually the coach is always going to be harder on the coach's son. So that's kind of the treatment that we got. Even Bubba, when he was there, was extremely tough on us. Like, I think they knew they were trying to protect us, and they knew that there's going to be a lot of eyes on us, and there's going to be a lot of expectancy coming from the Dudleys being second generation. So they were very, very picky with our training and critiquing, and they were extremely hard on us for sure.
Team 3D Academy has a pretty tough way they teach as it is. They like to have a good reputation to make sure that if you train at Team 3D Academy, you're representing them everywhere you go. Because if you're training at Team 3D Academy and you suck, now you're representing their teachings. So they are pretty tough on you. Their big lesson that they tell you when you walk through the doors is, we will put you through everything that you'll be put through in WWE or any of those other major companies, because we want you to be prepared, and we want to set you up for success. And if you're leaving those doors doing indies, or you're doing any type of shows and you're representing them and you're not showing that you're top quality, they don't want you doing anything. So they're really tough on you before they even allow you to do indies. And it's not just with me and my brother, it's really with anybody that walks through the doors.
Yeah, usually with their training, if anybody doesn't know the reputation of the Dudleys, they usually had a very tough reputation. So when it came to the training and their critiquing and stuff like that, it was no different. They would tell you what was wrong with what you did, and compliments were rare. They would rarely compliment us or tell us what we did good. They were they were very, very nitpicky on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
they got
feel
a
like
pretty tight relationship with WWE. So it's not called Team 3D Academy anymore. It's called Devon Dudley Academy, at least for my dad's side. Bubba owns one in Connecticut, and he still calls it Team 3D. But Devon Dudley Academy, which our dad owns in Winter Park, Florida, it's literally one street light away from the WWE Performance Center. So you're right across the street. So like they just had tryouts this last week, and my dad sent 2 students over to do a tryout. So he'll have that connect where he'll say, hey, I got 2 guys. I think they're ready. They look pretty good. I think they could do a tryout, and just send them across the street. So it's a pretty cool connection he's got with them.
yeah, we lived in Winter Park for a little while, so it's always nice to hear that things are going the way they are in Winter Park. We left a little bit too early to be a part of everything going on down there.
Yeah, we graduated Full Sail right before like the year before NXT became involved with them. So
Yeah, it's like a hot spot. There's a lot of there's I think Tyler Breeze and Sean Spears has a school there.
yeah, flatbacks.
Yeah, flatbacks. Our dad has a school. I think Alpha and Seekers is not too far from there. So like
Yep.
within that area, you got a good amount of schools to choose from.
Now you guys debuted in 2015. When you guys debuted, was it something, did you guys always want to go by Terrence and Terrell Hughes, or did you guys ever market yourselves as the Dudley Boys, anything like that?
Well, we knew we couldn't use the Dudley Boys because WWE owned it. Like
Right.
they actually own the name, so we really can't take that name anywhere else. We had like a whole list of names that we wanted to use, and then I think the day of our first show, our dad came with us just to like oversee everything, and he was like, "No, he didn't like that or that," and we ended up just going with our names for the first show just to kind of see, and then people in the crowd started chanting TNT in the crowd, and so whenever like during like the heat or when we were getting beat down, it was something easy for them to cheer TNT, and they kept cheering it throughout the match. So we kind of stuck with it. And that's when we were like, well, why don't we just keep what we have, since people started to like the name already. So that's kind of how we started it.
Yeah, it wasn't really something we chose, because even in football, they would either call us the Hughes brothers or TNT, get out there, because we were both on defense and they couldn't tell us apart. So TNT was never really a name we chose. It was kind of a name that was chosen for us. It was always our nickname. But with wrestling, they kind of did the same thing. And then with AEW, when we would do dark matches for AEW, it kind of came into a little bit of an issue. I think they pulled us aside and was like nobody has said anything, but it could be a problem. You guys should just think of other names. And then I think somebody at AEW said, like, why don't you guys use the Dudley name? And then they're like, I can't because WWE owns it. So we just went with the Hughes brothers just recently.
What was it like getting, I know you guys had a tryout with WWE, right?
Yeah, we had two tryouts.
And now and I know you popped up on SmackDown, we're doing extra work, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So what was it like going to AEW? Your father, obviously Devon, has a long storied history with WWE, and for you guys to kind of go into AEW and get those dark matches, what was the experience like going and working for this kind of new hot upstart company?
I didn't mind it. I mean, every time we would go to AEW to the shows, a lot of people would say, like, why are you here? Why are you not at WWE? I didn't see anything like odd, because me and my brother just trying to get a chance anywhere really. But a lot of people did think that, though, like, why are you here? Your dad is in WWE. So, but yeah, I didn't feel weird. I didn't feel weird at all. And I think the reason why I didn't feel weird was because I was doing other indies and stuff, still am. So it's like you're doing other indies, you're popping up at different promotions. Although it does, I guess, feel weird for some people because it's like the competitor for WWE.
Yeah, the overall experience was good. The locker room was good to us. We got a chance to work with some good teams that I wanted to work with, like Santana and Ortiz. We worked with the Gun Club, SCU, who we grew up getting to know through the TNA years. I think we were 11 or 12, 13 years old. when we used to come in the locker room, so we knew them pretty well. So those are like teams that we wanted to kind of wrestle with that we didn't get a chance to yet. So I'm really grateful for the experience that we had while we were over there for Dark.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very cool to see you guys in a match with the Gun Club, because it was two second generation guys. It was almost like the next generation. I thought that was very, very cool to see you guys work with those guys.
Yeah, what's funny was that was on the same exact day. I think it was like 19 or 20 years prior to the day I think the New Age Outlaws had beat the Dudleys for the titles. Like the day we had wrestled. Yeah, the day the show premiered was exactly the day. So that was pretty cool.
That's wild, man. What's it like? What's it like comparing, you know, kind of the backstage atmosphere of doing extra work at WWE versus going and having some dark matches at AEW? What's the differences?
Well, with WWE, I feel like when we were there over the coronavirus period, it was when we were doing Retribution and Raw Underground. So at that time, there were so many extras. So like it was pretty random. Like we would be at catering, and then they would just be like, "Who wants to be Retribution? Who wants to be, you know?" And then with AEW, it was like we were able to call ahead of time and speak with them, and then like, okay, we'll put you in a match. And then when we get there, it was with AEW, it was a little bit more to get a look. I feel like with the extra work, it was like, we're going to give you this opportunity to go out there and do the extra work. If you do great and somebody notices, that's great. But with AEW, this is specifically designed to get over their talent, but at the same time, you're getting a little bit more of an opportunity, which, like I said, I'm pretty grateful for. So I think that was the difference between the two.
Yeah, I would say like AEW extra work is more like you have a lot of opportunity to get a job. WWE extra work, I don't think, like, I think it's very rare that you can get a job out of that. I think their opportunities are more for their PC tryouts at the Performance Center. So I think like when you walk in the building of AEW and you're doing extra work, you're more thinking of, okay, I have this opportunity to like really show something. When you walk through the doors of WWE to do extra work, you're more like, okay, how do I not mess up a small part or maybe get a bigger part? You know, you're not really thinking about trying to like get a job or anything. You're more doing that when you do the PC trials.
Yeah, because when we did WWE extra work, like we were there pretty much the whole summer. And so like there were certain nights where we would just go and there's just so many extras there that we didn't do anything. So it's really just kind of like hoping to get a big part.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said you saw us on SmackDown, but we were actually doing SmackDown a lot more, but probably people didn't know because we were doing the mask thing with the Retribution. So we were always covered up or whatever. But, yeah.
So with I know both Bubba and Devon are sticklers for the old school rules, you know, like, you know, in-ring work is obviously important, but they are sticklers on the psychology of wrestling too. Talk a little bit about how you guys kind of experience the teachings of what in-ring psychology, how important that is just to pro wrestling in general.
Yeah, they're really, really strict on that. Like when I had my first match, I think it got stopped by Bubba like maybe 6 times because he was such a stickler on it. And I think it got to the point where the last time he threw a chair against the wall, like he was over it. Yeah. And it wasn't even really that I did anything wrong. It was just that like everything has to mean something in a match. And so he's very, very, you know, and if he teaches you that, you can't keep messing up on the same thing. So he has a little bit less patience for it. So with psychology, it's a lot. It's really nerve wracking to do a match, I feel like, in front of somebody like Bubba because he's such a stickler on it.
Yeah.
So the psychology part is extremely, extremely important. And then like with the promo, the psychology of a promo, like he has certain things you can't just talk. You have to say who, what, where, when, why. There are certain things you say, certain tones, things like that. So he really dissects it. And the psychology is huge with Devon too. I think that Bubba works a lot with the promos and then Devon works a lot with the matches, and so they both kind of attack all areas that you need as far. And I didn't really notice how important it was until I went out on the indies and started working guys who didn't get training, or maybe didn't have enough money to train, or couldn't find a local school, so maybe they were self-taught, or maybe they were trained by somebody in a local warehouse where maybe it was a nobody who didn't know anything.
Right.
And so they didn't have any psychology. So I would have a match with them and it was just completely different from what I learned. And it didn't make any. So that's kind of where I realized like how important psychology was, and the difference between the matches that they were teaching us to have and some of the matches that I was seeing on the indies.
So who's more intimidating to wrestle in front of, Bubba or Devon?
I think they're both.
Bubba was never really there. Bubba wasn't there as much. I think our dad was more hands-on, so probably Bubba, only because he wasn't there as much. Like, you know how like somebody's there every day teaching you, and then you got somebody who shows up like, and it's only he only stopped showing up for a while because he moved to Connecticut, and then he would fly in and out to Florida. So it was like, oh, Bubba's here today, and it was kind of different because Bubba wasn't there every day. But when they were both there every day, which was like 2007, 2008.
I would say if I had to
I don't know.
Bub, like, so it's Bubba's very, he doesn't have a lot of patience. So he is pretty hard as far as messing up in front of, but I think Devon is a little bit more where if you keep messing up, he'll be calm with you at first, unlike Bubba who snaps really easily. But when you get Devon to the point where he's like super, super pissed, he like unloads almost sometimes worse than Bubba. I feel like you just have to get him to that point. They can both be that way. I think Bubba's just easier, but when Devon does get to that point, it's worse than Bubba, I think, sometimes.
Now, is there one match that you guys have had so far in your career on the indies or AEW? Is there one set of opponents where when you guys were in there with them, you learned something about yourselves, or you look back to that match and be like, man, that I took something really important away from that?
Maybe the match with SCU was a good match that I had with AEW, because like it was a good match, but I feel like when you're in there with two guys who have been in the business for a while, there's a lot of things that they can find and nitpick. And I think Christopher Daniels is an agent that works backstage who usually will help and pull people aside, that even if it wasn't his match, he'll pull them aside and say, I watched your match and this is what I thought. So I think as of recent, that was probably the most recent match with Air. Jerry Lynn and Christopher Daniels pulled us aside, and there was a lot of like little things that like probably the average fan wouldn't notice or catch, but like they were able to catch and make those little things better.
I love watching you can see the influence in you guys just in the matches I've seen on Dark. I see the teachings from Devon and Bubba in you guys, just in the moves you pull off, the tag team moves you guys the tandem moves you do. It's a lot of fun to watch. The excitement level you guys bring, like when we first saw you guys pop up on Dark, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is going to be fun watching these guys grow into their career.
Yeah, I feel like it was nostalgia for a lot of people, especially when we hit the 3D for the first time in AEW, because like people hadn't seen the 3D since the Dudleys hit it. Right. So like for people, like you really don't know who we are, and you haven't seen us a whole lot on the indies. So when we do break out the 3D, I feel like that kind of makes people want to watch, because they know what the move is and they know who we were taught by and who we came from. So I feel like that was really cool to watch the fan reactions from that.
Yeah. Now, is that a move? Do you guys ask for that move, or do they kind of christen that move onto you guys? Like, how do you get to use? Because I know that is a very sacred finisher. Not many people have ever kicked out of that move, that finisher. So how do you end up getting that move?
I don't think it was really asked. I think it was just known. Like,
yeah.
Like when you're 10 years old and people say like, oh, when you wrestle and you guys do the 3D, or when people say, oh, they're wrestling, and they're like, oh, okay, I can't wait to take the 3D. Like, I think it was just, I didn't ask, he didn't ask. I think we just like grew into it. Like the minute we went to training and we did our first match. It was like, how do we do the three? Let's do the 3D. It wasn't, yeah.
Did you guys ever have any want to try another finisher other than that, or was it always just settled on that we're going to use the 3D?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
actually, when we first started, we thought maybe like, do we do the same thing, or is that copying, or do we do our own thing? And so I think one of the times Bubba was there, we tried our finisher, and it was like a double Alabama slam. And
Okay.
Bubba didn't really like it. And then he pulled us aside into the office privately. And he was like, I understand what you guys were trying to do. But he was like, why not take, if anything, that move? Because he said, I don't really think there's too many tag team maneuvers that you can really think of that utilizes both guys like that. So he was saying, like, you have my permission, take it. He said, if
That's
I'm giving
awesome.
it to you, take it. Yeah. He said, don't try to think out the box with that one. He said, you have something good to use, so use it.
Yeah, that's in your blood, man. That's kind of carrying the torch. Now I asked about matches, if there's one match, and you talked about SCU. Now, over the course of your career, you've had matches on the indies, matches in AEW, you've worked at WWE, you've came across, I imagine, a lot of talented wrestlers from the top to the bottom of the card. Is there one piece of advice for each of you guys that you've got from someone that might be even a non-conventional piece of advice where it sticks in your head when you're in a match, you remember what that person said and you really, it's that important piece of advice that you lean on just in your pro wrestling career?
A lot of the advice that I think meant more was most recently at AEW Dark. I feel like AEW Dark, we did it for like 5 or 6 months, like the time period. But I feel like all the critiques that we got then meant the most, because anything before then, we were still kind of like growing into it. And now we're being taken more seriously. And it's like, okay, this is how you can get to the very next level. This is how you can get to like be a star. And I think Daniels had said at one point, I got to feel something from you. He was like, when you go out there, you don't want to just have a match. You don't want to just wrestle. Like, somebody needs to be invested. You got to feel it. So when you throw a clothesline, don't just throw a clothesline. When you throw a kick, don't just throw a kick. Like, I got to feel it. I got to feel that you want to do that. And I got to feel that there's a reason behind it. And basically a lot of the teachings that we got at doing Dark really helped me in any indie that I've ever done, any extra work that I've ever done. I feel like AEW Dark was the most progression in such a short amount of time. And I think the advice that stuck with me the most was make sure people feel something. Because I don't think I thought that way. I think whenever I go out in the match, I would always think sell this way or have this kind of verbal or have this, but like really thinking about every move that I do, everything that I do, I always got to remember, like, people have to feel it, So I think that was most recently the best advice.
For me, I got good advice from.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, when you watch guys that you love, they make you feel it. Like, I was just looking at a clip just now on Instagram that popped up, and it was one of the best matches people say, which was Hogan versus The Rock.
Oh,
and I think the reason why it was because the crowd was electric and you felt things. They didn't just do things. Like, everything they did made you feel something.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I got good advice. It wasn't from a wrestler though; it was from Earl Hebner. And Earl Hebner said, like, out of all the matches that he's ever noticed, some of the stars he's been in the ring with, he said it was never, like, kind of what he said. It was never because of a move. He said it's 90% facials and what comes from here and above. And he said it's how you react to things. So he was saying, like, everything as far as the moves or what kind of match you have or dives or whatever, he said it's never mattered. He said 90% of it is from here and up. He said if you can go through the match and focus on here, on how you react, how you play, all of that, he was saying that's your gold. That's gold right there. That's what's going to make you your money.
And that guy's been in there with, talk about advice from a guy who's seen it all. I mean, Earl Hebner, that's incredible. As far as like goals you guys have, I know you had said that you're just looking to get an opportunity anywhere. Terrence had mentioned that, you guys are taking indie dates and working in AEW, doing the extra work at WWE. Do you guys have are you just kind of like wanting to get in where you fit in, or is there like a goal that you have in mind of what you want to do?
I think coming from the most decorated tag team, I feel like we have to go for that goal of becoming one of the most accomplished tag teams in the modern era of tag team wrestling.
Absolutely.
I think for like, obviously you have to touch base in all the major promotions in order to do that. So obviously WWE being the major company to be able to get a big run there, or if AEW also was in that. I always wanted to travel to go to New Japan. We were actually trying to get to New Japan right before the coronavirus, but it fell through. So if I can touch base in all of the major companies, including, you know, WWE, AEW, NWA, New Japan, and just really make a name that way, I think that's probably the ultimate goal for me.
Yeah, I think now with that forbidden door kicked open a little bit, you guys get in Tony Khan's ear, man. Have him send you over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we got a question we like to ask at the end of interviews. Just a little fun question. Say you're out making towns, you're making indie dates, you guys are driving, you have a van, you're in there together. Each of you get to pick any 3 wrestlers, alive or dead, to be traveling with you, to hear their stories, to go to bars with, to just share the road with. For each of you, what 3 wrestlers would you want to travel the roads with?
I would say, being in 2021, me and my brother being a tag team. If you think about out of all the years, who probably made the most money as a tag team, I think people would say the Road Warriors would be up on that list. They were like main eventing. And if there's any tag team that made the most money like that as a tag team, which is really tough to do, I want to hear their stories. I want to hear how they did that. I want to hear like just how to get to that point. So knockout 2 right there with the Road Warriors. And I think hearing stories of, as a 3rd generation, I'm a 2nd generation, hearing stories from somebody like Horton on how he overcame things, you know, because there's a lot of pressure, I think, on can you be better than your dad? So I think hearing stories from him. So I would say those would be my 3.
I would say Ric Flair. I feel like Ric Flair.
Oh yeah, I mean, if
feel like Ric
anybody,
Flair-
oh man, if anybody's gonna hit the road with you, I mean, Flair's got to be top of the list.
Yeah. I would love to hear some crazy stories from Flair. I've already heard a lot of stories from Flair, but just to hear it from him, and I'm sure some things that other people don't know, I'd like to hear Flair. I'd also like to hear Haku, because like I don't know if you guys know who Haku, the history, but yeah, he I heard he like used the gimmick and everything to take people out in bars.
Yeah,
I heard he was badass.
Yeah, I've always heard he's like the toughest dude in the locker room. Like no one wanted to mess with him.
Yeah, I want to hear some fight stories from him. And then I'd probably say Taker is another one. He's been in the business for over 20 plus years. I feel like that's one man I can learn just by being in the same car.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for doing the show, guys. We look forward to watching your career grow. I know you're going to pop up in major promotions. It's just a matter of time. Let our listeners know where they can find you guys on social media.
Yeah, you could find Instagram.
My Instagram is
Terrell, TERRELLHUGHES _.
Mine is Terrence Hughes, but Hughes is spelled with a Z at the end, so it's TERRENCE for Terrence, and then HUGHEZ.
Awesome, guys. Well, we'll be watching. Again, thank you so much. We look forward to watching your career just flourish, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
absolutely.
Have a good one.
You guys have a good day.
You too.